coding and how to improve it without actually coding. When you think of coding as a marathon and not as a short race that you have to complete very quickly, a lot of this advice makes a lot more sense and is a lot more applicable, because you have to remember at the end of the day you're going to be doing this for 40 years. So make sure you have a good setup when you're coding. There's nothing worse than coding on a small screen, on a small laptop keyboard, in the corner of an uncomfortable chair and on your lap or something, right? Don't do this. Advise, number one, a standing desk. Those things are very useful and they prevent back problems. And yeah, it's just 10 times better to stand for an hour while you're coding than sitting the whole time. Number two, a comfortable chair. So when you are sitting, that you are comfortable and you have like a good posture. Because again, this is a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to be doing this every day for 40 years. You want to make sure that you don't end up with some back problems.
A few things I need to do today, so gonna cycle into town, pick something up from the pharmacy, maybe catch a coffee on my way back, read a book, and then yeah, probably come back and do some coding. Let's get this started.
The next thing is have a good keyboard. A good keyboard gives you good feedback, allows you to type faster. Use a mouse as well. Don't use a scroll pad because generally it's better. And make sure you have multiple monitors, right? So when you're coding, you're going to be looking at multiple different things at once. You might be chatting to someone on one screen, you could be coding on another, and you could be reading some reference material somewhere else. So you need like at least 2, if not 3 screens while you're coding.
Decided to cycle this one in. And yeah, it's about a half an hour cycle for me. Should be there soon. My bike is a bit all over the place today. Ooh. Yeah, it's an old one, but I got it for free, so can't complain. And yeah, see you guys when I get there.
Another thing with your setup, allow some natural light as well. I mean, you can code in an office, you can code wherever you want, but some natural light coming in is just easier on the eyes and yeah, just as nice. It improves your mood. Going back to the keyboard point, try to learn to code quickly. So that will also involve being able to type quickly. What you're going to need is a good keyboard. You're going to need to pick an IDE. So you're going to need one that you kind of learn well. So there's IntelliJ by JetBrains. There's, Visual Studio Code. Make sure you pick one and try to learn it as best as you can. On top of this, with the coding quickly, you can learn to type much faster as well. And learning your keyboard off by heart and having a mechanical keyboard that will give you a bit of feedback. All these little things, they're very small, but when you add them up and again, it's a marathon. Over 40 years, if you get quite good at that, you can type with speed, and it's just like, taught to keyboard. And yeah, try to get familiar with your equipment, basically. Even a marathon is not a solo endeavor. You're going to have a manager, you're going to have a coach behind you, you're going to have a team behind you helping you to get to that finish line quicker. Working with people is always important in every field, and there's no different in coding. Maybe you don't even work with a team on the project you're on, but still you need to communicate with people. There's always someone who wants the end product. There's a customer, there's a manager, there's a boss, there's a team lead. Learning to communicate with these people is very important. Actually, it can improve your coding because if you can, communicate with other developers and you'll have other people to bounce ideas off, you might learn from other people's mistakes. A lot of the time, you mightn't even be aware of a certain concept, a certain idea, unless you start communicating with others in your field. And you can only go so far alone, but if you go there with other people, you can really get much further. So just got to town. I just need to find a place to park my bike. And then I'll head and pick up the stuff that I need, maybe get a coffee. So I think I found the perfect spot. If you're working in a particular sector, it's good to have a good understanding of that sector. Help you understand the customer, help you understand the end goal with your code. And when I say customer, I don't mean just in a business sense. I mean, you could be your own customer. You could be developing something for yourself. And if you understand your problem, of course, you're going to code it much more directly. You're going to understand that this is what you're trying to solve, and this is the path you should be generally going down to solve that problem. But if you don't have this knowledge, then it's going to be much harder. First thing is sleep. 8 hours of sleep is essential because what you're trying to achieve each day is a certain amount of hours of focus. And to achieve that focus, you need good sleep. But to try to do it, at night as well, and not to be up all night coding. I know a lot of people like to take the approach of, let me just stay up and code until the early hours of the morning and I'll just get this done. But the problem is you pay the price for that the next day. And even if you think that you're a night owl and you can stay up, and maybe some people do, but I have a feeling the majority of people aren't, and they're just kind of trying to push through. And again, you have to remember, this is a marathon. This is a a long career if it's something you want to do for a long time. And so by doing that, you pay the price later, and then you're kind of kicking the ball down the road, and eventually, you're going to catch up with it. You're going to be burnt out, or you're going to be tired, or you're just not going to have the same amount of hours of focus as you could have. And this comes back to my point about focus. So you want to be coding when you're most focused.
I always find it a bit strange to film in public, especially in a busy city. But I guess I am just a little bit shy that way, and need to get over myself and not worry too much about it, because at the end of the day no one really cares. But yeah, a busy place like this is a bit strange. So yeah, let's go get a coffee, chill out. Forgot my book, maybe I'll go buy one, we'll see.
You can't spend all day coding. I mean, you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. There's only so many hours you can focus highly during the day, and normally there's some time between waking up and the evening time, right? Sorry, I had to adjust this. The sun is getting super bright here. My God. Focusing. Back to focusing. Yeah, like I said, between the morning and evening, and you want to use these hours for coding. You don't want to be coding late in the night or in the evening when you are tired, because you're not going to be as focused. So it's kind of this concept of using your best hours for coding, or for whatever it is you want to focus on. This could be anything, really. A lot of people make the mistake of kind of procrastinating on what they're supposed to do, and then they do it in the late hours of the night. But the problem is those hours are your least focused hours, and that's what I'm saying. Get that sleep. Get the focus hours, code then. And you can greatly improve these focus hours by also improving your diet and your exercising, right? You're like, okay, well, hey, what's exercise got to do with coding?
Got a pretty sweet view where I am. Got what I needed. Got some pastry, coffee as well. I also decided to get this notebook just for journaling, and a copybook, because I am going to attempt theory informatics. Basically all the mathematics and theory behind computer science. I'm trying to look at it from a more mathematical point of view, like what are the problems and how can you mathematically solve them. Cheers.
The way your brain is wired, it needs exercise. It needs good food. If you look at the chess masters, some of them, their diet, it involves like some of the healthiest diets in the world, because they have to focus for so long. Their brain needs all of this energy. They can't be eating sugary food or, eating fatty food that will give them the spike, but then they drop off hard. And again, it's about extending that focus period and doing it over a long period of time. Sure, you can do this in the short term. You can code at night, eat your junk food, and power through. But you will burn out over time doing that. And so having good diet and good exercise will help improve that focus time. The food for the focus and the exercise also for the focus, even if you're tired directly after. I mean, you don't use your focus hours to exercise, you do it afterwards, but the exercise will help improve the focus hours, because it will help with your brain chemistry, it will help clear your mind, and for those hours that you're not coding, you're more relaxed, and that's also important. And brings me to my next point, relaxation. So the reason I bring up these focus hours, and you're like, well, I don't need focus hours, I just need to sit and code all day, and it doesn't matter, eventually it'll hit me and I'll get through it, but that's also a mistake. By coding all day, you're actually probably being less productive than if you coded less.
Alright, I'm cycling the home stretch now, bringing my bike, heading back.
So I probably wouldn't recommend more than 8 hours a day, maybe even 6 hours of coding a day, because your focus will start to drop off after that point, and you have diminished returns. And then you'll have spent 12, 13 hours coding, and then you'll go to bed late, and then you'll wake up and you have to do it again, and you'll dread it. You won't want to do it. Again, it's a marathon. If you start sprinting at the start of the marathon, you're going to hate the last couple of miles, because you've just used all your energy on those first few. Take some time to do other things, to get your mind off the coding. Another thing chess masters do, and I'm trying to compare it to chess because it's another focused sport, very much like coding, is that during a match, sometimes they will get up and just walk around. They'll just take a look at some other stuff, because it helps improve the focus, even just temporarily. Always staring at the same thing will give you tunnel vision, and the answer to you and your coding might be found while you're resting. It's like that eureka moment in the shower, right? You're totally relaxed, you're having a shower, and you go, that's the solution. And you want more time for that, and to allow for better focus when you are coding. You've got what you needed done in that productive hour, and then your free time, you're more relaxed, and when you're more relaxed, you come into the next day with more energy and more time to focus. So it's a balancing act. Finally, a couple of last points. Make sure when you are coding, you have some quietness. Sometimes I like to listen to music when I'm coding. Usually when I'm not trying to super focus, but I'm just doing something basic, even if it helps to just get me into the mood to start doing something, maybe I just listen to music for a little bit while I get started, and then when I really need to focus, maybe I turn it off and do that focus time. But it's all about just getting started. Whatever gets you to that seat and gets you going. Just make sure the room is quiet in general, and try to avoid distractions, internet distractions, Reddit or whatever YouTube stuff you watch. Try to avoid that. Set a certain time where you're coding and you're avoiding all of those distractions. Alright, so I'm back home. I'm going to start coding in a minute. Got what I needed from town, and now I'm going to spend some hours coding, and then wrap up the day. Lastly, just do some reading as well. If you're not coding, besides coding, you could do reading. You could read a book about coding. You could read a book about famous coders. Maybe get some inspiration about how you get to that point of being great at what you do. Finally, conferences are pretty good. I was saying before about building a community and communicating with people. About conferences for whatever area of development you're interested in will help with that as well. And it'll also be a fun way to just interact with people. I'd be interested to see what you guys do to help you focus and what your routine for coding is. Let me know below what your routine looks like. See you in the next one.